The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. Back at our usual locales, as you can see by the edge of my Earl Anthony picture, back at home, and joined by the inimitable Stuart Williams. How are you, Beef Stew?
Pretty good. I think we're all in a little bit of a somber mood this morning. Losing our friend yesterday, but I think as a tribute to Mark, he'd want the show to go on, especially if we could make some money out of it.
Mark is a one-of-a-kind personality. He's been one of my best friends for a long time, and we knew it was coming, but we didn't know it was coming this fast. So,
yeah.
I don't really know what else to say other than he's out of pain now, and I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss him a lot. But
but there was never a deal that he didn't want to make. So throw in a super chat for Mark. Let's go. We will make a donation to where it needs to go. Yeah, we all do. So, all right. We will move along past the sad times, but we had to mention it because it's Mark. And somebody says 2 shows back to back. Watch out, Pat McAfee. Yeah, maybe if we were talking about the NFL, not the PBA. So I'm not sure our viewer base is quite as. We're not pulling from the same viewer base as old Pat.
It's short.
All right, Duck. Good to see you. Let's get that pie rolling. I'll take apple. That's almost as cheesy as one of the shorts I recorded that you'll see in the next few days. All right, Ryan. Nice to see you. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you. He says, morning. Looking forward to your thoughts on the new ones. Got the clone this week. First set, 725 with a 10-pin miss. And then back 11, game 3. Very nice. Wood Lanes, it seems like a winner. Clean but not jumpy. Yeah. Somebody else was asking me about Wood Lanes the other day, and I was saying how I feel like solid balls actually look quite good on Wood Lanes, whereas pearl balls are so responsive that it's really difficult to get them through the front part of the lane.
Yeah, they tend to not see it quite the right way. I guess I never really thought about it specifically, and we don't bowl on it that much anymore, but that probably tracks. There's certainly more oil in the surface that stays in the surface forever because of years and years of putting it on there. And the clone's a little smoother in the back. It would blend out the wet dry down lane, I think. At least how I've seen it so far.
Going to watch anyway, even though I don't really care about the new balls, because for me the Hustle Rip is already the ball of the year. Well, I mean, I'm definitely going to have a few fans, I think. Friend of the show, Adam, says he liked the two balls you were using on the show. Curtis, I hope you're joking. He says, morning, just got fired, so I'm here for the 9:30 special. Clint, your mom's in, so nice to see her. So, yeah. You guys have got the bowling world on lock. Yeah. All 150 of us. Morning, Chris. What's going on? Yeah, I mean, 3.14. That's almost 3 times. That's almost a third of a strike, I guess.
Okay, this is a throwback. One of your thought process experience of the World Championship show that fagin ended up winning. You were on a roll in that show. Fun watch. It's been a minute.
My
You
thought
have set some
process.
context.
My thought process in it was Fagan was an asshole for throwing a dull ball right where I was bowling, so I got my revenge at the Masters, and he was upset about it. I took a sanding disc to a ball I didn't like, and I destroyed the part of the lane he was bowling on, one lane and one lane only, and moved on with life. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to, reciprocate on something that was financially as useful. But yeah, I had a pretty good look going straighter, and I should have got out of that ball and got into something a little quicker. But I wasn't really used to striking that much on TV. Probably still not. So, Adams, Chris, and Ryan are going to the Lucky Larson. I'm not making the trip. So, all right. Well.
All right.
Chris says he's ready for some more bullshit while we're driving. I'm going to translate for you, Chris. All right. Well, thanks for the chat. What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the global ball, or do you want to start with the super pretty one?
What do you get teed up?
I've got both, so we can go with either.
Well, this go with Storm. This lead off with Storm, and
okay. This is going to win prettiest ball of 2023.
I don't think so.
So yeah, this is from my video that I'm going to upload after the show. I mean, I was super excited about how clean this ball gets through the front part of the lane. The Rex cover's been pretty nice to me and you so far. I mean, I think we both really like the infinite physics. The night road was actually pretty useful for me. I think you used it a little bit.
Yeah, I did like it. Actually, I couldn't figure out where it disappeared from my bag / arsenal.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it forever.
I did.
You have a term for this one.
Yeah, I think this one's a banger.
Yeah. I used it on 46 feet. Normally, really clean balls don't always like that. It did not really have a problem. It was certainly my most responsive look down lane.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be the transition ball. It's not a ball I anticipate using on fresh on very many patterns.
No, probably not. It's probably a little because it comes fairly shiny, and
I did like how I could play a little straighter on the house shot with it. So yeah, this was kind of the deal flight for me. I felt like I could use it on multiple kind of angles, which is always nice. On the house shot. The Blackout is definitely stronger than the Ruby. More core, stronger cover. R2S versus Rex. So yeah. Curtis says you use 1/2 inch. No, I use 7/8 now. That's what
I use a half
when your fingers stop bending. So when you were using it, you were kind of were you going straight from like say a reality into it, or did you have like another step?
No, I actually used to step in between some back and forth. I used a pie as a little more shape off the reality. I got to use both the new balls this week, which was, that almost never happens.
Look at you, company man. We call you tackle.
I walked in right off the plane, no practice balls, 2 new balls sitting on the rack that I'd never seen until that morning, and used both of them in the first 2 games. So it was nice. It actually it fit where you would expect it to fit. A clean, pretty responsive cover. Mine's a 4 inch. It's a 4x5x3, which is a little stronger pin position than I usually drill. It does flare about 9 or 10 inches.
Yeah, you haven't really had much experience of that shape lock core, have you, with the virtual gravity ball?
No, I never threw that ball. That was mostly before they opened up all the brands, and so yeah, but yeah, it reminds me of watching the Dark Codes. It reminds me of watching some of those other. It rolled in the mid really good. It didn't struggle with wiggling on 46 feet and all the carry down, and it went through them better than some of the other balls. And so it was a very pleasant surprise as I stepped down off of the bigger clone pie
jam
exotics, any kind of like that. It's cleaner and sharper than that, but stronger than say X2 and some of those other cleaner balls down the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, Adam says, I don't know if any of us asked, it's a great replacement for the Dark Code. I think it's going to be as close as you can get. For me, the Dark Code was a little more forward once it made its move, because I think the Dark Code was a little more responsive. And for me, once it was a little drier, that turned into like hook forward. In the time that I've been using the Blackout, I don't really see it do that much. I see it to be a little more rounded down the lane than the Dark Code, which is good because it feels like it stays in play for a little longer. I think it'll flat 10 rather than like violently get offline, so to speak. That kind of gives you a subtle hint to change ball rather than the wham. So that's kind of where it is.
Yeah, just threw the Blackout and Pi at a matchmaker. The Blackout seems like they divided the Dark Code and Night Road by 2 and came up with this.
Yeah, I don't really know what that kind of means, but yeah, sure.
Dark Code core-ish numbers. It seems to me a little bit. It might be a little bit more than either one of those.
Yeah.
But,
like I say, the Dark Code has the same cover, in same core, same cover, same color, and basically the same finish. The Dark Code was a couple of different finishes in time. David says, well, thanks for the super chat, first of all. He says, morning. Thanks for your thoughts on the energy. I had a zero gravity during my youth days and loved that ball. How similar? They're not that similar, to be honest. The zero gravity was a very that was another niche ball. You either really liked it or you really hated it. Of the balls right now, I would think that the Tour Dynamics is actually a little closer to that zero gravity. Probably a little weaker in the core, but like that would be the closest, I would think. But that was a ball that I raked with the zero gravity. Raked. Because when it worked, man, you could strike a lot. Chris is having some animal issues. Would you say the Blackout is a Zen on steroids? I don't really like that term, Adam, to be honest. No, not particularly. I just don't think those two balls are very close in the bag. I think the Zen is earlier and smoother and symmetrical, so more predictable.
Yeah, complementary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they're particularly like that comparable anyway.
I think if you really shined it, it could be in maybe you add a little more polish, you could probably make it closer to an X2, but probably a little stronger than that even.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see that for me, it was like cleaner than an Absolute, but way more down the lane than the Absolute. Like when I threw the Absolute in the video, it's kind of funny. I was like, oh, this doesn't do what I expected. And I was like, man, it's a good job this isn't a commercial for the Absolute, because I crushed it. Like,
yeah, and that kind of immediately hit. As much as the Absolute's been a good ball at home, and we've liked it there, it wasn't great on tour, and this ball was already. I only used it more in 1 week than I was able to use the Absolute most of the year. Even though it was a ball I liked, it just hasn't matched up with patterns out there very well. So it kind of fits in that slot as a longer cleaner than, say, your Phase 2, your Zens, than that, but probably out hooks them in the back and maybe a little more overall, depending on length of pattern.
This would be a better question for Chris, I think.
Yeah, I mean the Blackout, the energy is going to be cleaner than that by a considerable margin. The Pi, I believe, is going to be a similar as far as being able to dig in the mid lane. It's a little bit less finish than the Summit is, and it's going to be more down lane than the Summit. So that's kind of where I see it fit in. I see it as a fit in underneath the Reality Gem, Nova type, Proton type balls, as a little longer than that and a little more directional down lane. And before you get down to the Phase 2 Zen combo of balls, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the TV show, the finals of that TOC, you can actually see the difference between an Eternity Pi and a Summit pretty well.
Oh yeah. Tom Adcock throws,
and like Adcock and JJ, I would say, are two fairly comparable bowlers, like rev rate wise, kind of roll. Like JJ was a little more around it. Adcock's rev rate's maybe a little higher, but they're in the same ballpark, definitely. And you could see that JJ's ball was getting around the corner much better than Tom's, especially on that right lane. It looked like
the right lane was super tight all week, and then occasionally the rack was too, which didn't help anything. But
yeah, it definitely looked like the Pi was came off it a little better down the lane. So
certainly harder than the Summit. Yeah.
All right, we got a few questions that are kind of Troy Lynn.
TikTok. I'm on borrowed time with him, or vice versa, every left-hander. So judging by the symmetrical pattern at Longview, you probably should be bowling down there this weekend. I'm not sure what inspired Trey to put a symmetrical pattern in a place where everybody knows they want a left-hander already. I guess maybe 1 year they didn't have everyone in the top 8, so he decided to fix that. But we'll see. They're a little softer this year, that's for sure.
Yes, player of the year. Yes, he was a savage. All right, let's have a look at the Eternity Pi by Stu.
I'll keep trying.
Shut up, Alexa.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now. Please try a little later.
So this was on the fresh. I kind of used this one to start with and then went to the other video. I've got a pretty strong layout on this one. I've got a 5-inch pin, which is a strong layout for me. Kind of a 2-inch buffer. I think it was a 4.5-inch mass bias. It's definitely cleaner than reality for me. More pop down the lane. It's probably because of the color, but it gave me a little bit of the lock vibes. Whereas the lock for me was a ball that was cleaner and more angular than, say, the Alpha Crux at the time. And they were both kind of useful. I always felt I could throw the lock really hard because it was responsive enough. Whereas for me, really strong balls at times, you can't really throw them hard because they're not responsive enough a lot of the time. If you have any sort of angle, you kind of throw it through it a little bit. So this one I didn't have that issue with. I feel like it's pretty responsive down the lane. I'd be interested to see what this one actually did if you wrong video. Sorry. If you shined it. I feel like you could probably separate the ball quite a bit, shining it. Whereas, say the gem, it doesn't really separate as much. I don't feel like, when you go shiny and dull with the gem, I kind of feel like you have almost the same sort of shape, just a little further down the lane. Whereas, like reality for us, we've had a lot of success shining those. I don't know really the cover makeups of what makes it different or not. But yeah, for me, definitely, definitely cleaner. And fits almost exactly what you were saying.
Yeah. I think this one's pretty good. It's fit into a better slot. To me, I liked it better than the clone, where I want it to fit underneath that reality group and in between before you get down to phase 2 Zen, those type of, Zen Gold, kind of in there. That's where I wanted it to fit. Was hoping it would fit, and it seems to. So far, I mean, it's only one pattern, and it was, a 46-foot pattern, which is not a normal-ish distance. But so far, it certainly fits in that gap for me.
Morning, Glenn. Thanks for the chat. How's it going? Nice to see you again. Yeah. Like I say, I'm excited by this one because I think it's going to give me a little bit more versatile at the top of the bag. I think it gives me, I think it allows me to probably carry one less reality and have this. And I think that might gap it a little better. I think that sometimes when you try to use one ball to do a couple of jobs, it's kind of like some of it's mental, but some of it's just like some balls just don't match up in centers. And if you've got two of them to fill that gap, there's a good chance that neither of them are going to work. So having two options, even if they do have pretty similar covers on them, I think is better. For me, the gem is just, unless it's an absolute flood, I just find that one a little difficult for me to use. So I kind of have been taking like kind of two realities. But now I can probably keep the stronger reality with the surface and have this one. And, and that might gap it a little better.
Shoots your eye a little bit.
Well, just having a few different questions.
Yeah, some different shapes and things. Lingo question: when people say a pair is tight, they assume less room for air. Is this correct? Most of the time, I mean it's just slicker. It's not necessarily less room. It just means that it doesn't hook as much when they're saying it's tighter. So
yeah, it's not like a tight fairway.
No, yeah, it like many bowling terms, it's probably somewhat misused, but it just becomes what everybody says. So,
and ironically, most times when it's tight, it's because the front's blown to pieces.
Yeah, it hooks in the front and this doesn't hook very much down lane. So
yeah,
lane has actually gotten from front to back. It's gotten from this to this.
Yeah,
and so.
Yeah,
I didn't see anything Jacob posted about disappointment, so I don't know.
I think he was just joking. He wrote something along the line, Jacob, because Jacob's not bowling, and he's bowled with AJ Rice the last few years. So
it went from 1.5 to 1 to whatever it was. Last year they were hard.
Yeah, and Jacob 37 feet. Said,
and this is going to be probably. I mean, you never know. Oil bowl can still be pretty tricky, but you would think 15 to 20 pins higher, 15 pins higher game. Probably on average.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some pretty high scores. I think it definitely brings more teams are going to feel comfortable on this. Whereas last year, I think to a large extent, I think last year, although it was great for us, I don't necessarily think a lot of people were like thrilled by that because on the fresh, a few of those teams really struggled. Like couldn't bowl 550, like 500 struggled.
30, 37 feet on a it's a high lineage surface that's a pretty tough distance. Can't really play the gutter. The track hooks a ton. You get exposed pretty quick if you don't have some pretty specific skills.
Yeah. So
this will be way more friendly. A little longer, plays into the track the center characteristics a little bit. And that's why I was referencing the symmetrical pattern, but it does play into the surface help of the center. So it had a chance to be very fair. So
whatever. It's a fun tournament.
Yep.
When you play those bracket tournaments, it's always a bit random anyway. So
it can be anything. Edward Duda across with him in Fort Myers. How are you?
But tournament bracket tournaments, getting excited. We're not that far away from old Snowman again.
Jeez. It's got to drop below 95 at some point before we can talk about Snowman, doesn't it?
Don't know. Skillins messaged me the other day. You ready for Snowman? I was like, yep, I've got my boy back.
Do I think the Eternity Pie is stronger TNT? Definitely stronger than a TNT.
It might actually be cleaner than the TNT, though.
That's not how I see it, but we've agreed to disagree on that, Paul.
The TNT is so early for me. Oh, my God.
It's just smooth. I don't know that it's early. It's just smooth. So
I like in my mind, it feels like it hits the lane and starts trying to hook. Just not very much.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. How would you compare the DNA to? I'm assuming you mean the Eternity Pie when you say this. In a two-hander Arsenal. Well, let's just scratch off the last bit because me and Chris aren't two-handers. So we'll just say, how do we compare the DNA to the Eternity Pie? Go ahead, Chris. Do you want to go first? Or do you
More. It's yeah, whether it's cleaner or not, it's certainly stronger off the mid lane and more directional down lane. Surface probably dictates whether it's earlier or not earlier, but I guess it comes out at 2000, I believe. The one I had felt like it had plenty of surface underneath it. I saw some of the other ones.
Sorry,
the Pie.
Okay.
I saw some of the other ones that looked, because we had a lot of oil on the lane this week, and I saw some of the other ones that looked like they were getting fairly lane shine by the end of the block, and mine never did lane shine, and I didn't ever really have to touch it. I think the DNA is smoother off the mid lane and it's smoother down lane. It really rolls like a symmetrical ball, which is very odd for a ball with that giant of a core in it, especially a big asymmetrical core like that. But that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like the DNA was really hard to understand. Like, it was just a ball that I find it difficult to know exactly where it fits. I think it's a ball I should use the first game. I don't necessarily think it's as great after we get past the first game. Whereas I feel like the Eternity Pie is going to be a ball that's going to be better games 2, 3, 4. Like, it almost feels like the DNA is like a setup ball. Like, whereas the Eternity's, like, I would use DNA and then I would go to the Eternity Pie, is more how I see it. From just what we've seen. Being fair, I haven't really seen that much of the DNA.
Yeah, I think it was marketed as a much stronger ball than it really was, and I think that threw a lot of people off of slotting it in where it probably is closer to fitting, and so it just ended up not fitting for a lot of people. So,
he follows up with
Hagrid. Off the road and onto the show. There you go.
He follows up with regular Eternity and the new Black Ball. For me, the regular Eternity is one of the earliest shiny balls I've ever thrown in my entire life.
It's awfully smooth.
But it's odd because I feel like it isn't smooth in the front,
really?
And that causes it to be smooth down the lane. I feel like it's really responsive when I let go of it, and it kind of gets it to, because when I've used it on the super high volume pattern, it's fairly angular. I just feel like for me personally, as soon as I get it onto the lane, it kind of stands up. So then it is always fighting itself to come around the corner. Whereas when we bowled on a flood of oil or on one of the really long patterns, it's looked fantastic, the Eternity. I feel like the new Blackout is kind of what people thought the Eternity might be, where I feel like it's really clean through it. And I think it's a monster in the back 30 feet of the lane. I feel like I would go from an Eternity to the black ball. Like I could use the Eternity, to stay a little straighter. And then once I wanted to make the move left, I feel like that black ball would get through it better and like be able to separate my, my lay down and my break point more. So that's kind of how I see it. I know I've seen people be successful with the Eternity, but most of the people I've seen be successful with it are speed dominant. I haven't really seen people like slow hooking the Eternity very much.
No, I don't think that's where it shines. I think it's better with keeping it in front of you. The wet dry, for me, it blends it out a little bit more. I've used it on some of the long patterns with friction in the front, ironically, for me, is where it's fit in.
The two times I've really got to use it was the US Open, the first pattern, when we bowled on the long one, and I could throw it straight, and then the Masters on the first game. After I kind of needed to change my angle, it wasn't really so much my friend. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for showing up. He says he's learned a lot from listening to us. I mean,
the good old word of niche comes to mind with the DNA.
I'll be honest.
Adam says he's going to drill an exponent a new gold label.
Yeah, good options, Adam. But there's a lot of balls coming out, so don't pin yourself into one that you might,
Black is always cleaner, right? Just the color that affects that. That's certainly, I don't know, always as strong, but it certainly skews pretty heavily that way. That the darker colors tend to be longer and more responsive, and some of that is the perception, and that becomes its own reality in itself. But one color balls tend to do that also. But historically speaking, it seems like the darker that is, the better, the more that happens. Yes. Where would you see the Pi fitting against the X1?
I think they're fairly comparable. I think the Pi's a little stronger overall.
That's how I see it so far too.
Yeah. The X1 fit in the gap that I'm going to put the Pi into.
Okay.
It was a step down from reality. It just shows
JJ actually threw both of them last week, and so I didn't get a lot of look at it, but it seemed like he moved a little more left when he used the Pi versus how he was using the, But to be fair, the X1 was not new.
Yeah,
it had a few games on it.
It's been around the block.
Yeah,
I would say that's fairly universal. I think the people who like the TNT really like it because they're a little speed dominant and it ends up hooking more than a bunch of the balls that they have. Because it's fairly cover dominant, I feel like. So, but if you're not speed dominant, I don't think that ball.
Exotic versus Eternity Pi. I actually think the exotic cover is probably a little earlier. The shine helps get it down the lane a little bit more. But in general, from what I've seen so far, the exotic's a little earlier in the mid lane and probably a little smoother down lane than the Eternity on what we bowled on last week. So it's very relative. But
yeah, I almost wonder whether the exotic is almost a little more responsive. So when it hooks, it kind of makes it go forward a little bit.
Yeah, and that's probably the difference is I think the exotic for me gets a little more forward.
And I think that me and you have this debate quite often with balls. And I think that, like, because of your particular role, you almost see the ball be smoother because you have a smaller gap between a quick one and a smooth one in that spot.
Yeah.
So then it looks way smoother down the lane. No, I'm just that's just how when me and you talk about it, that's kind of how I see it. I think that it's way harder to make the exotic continue than the Eternity Pie.
Okay.
Like, just when I've used it, I feel like the exotic is a ball that I have to throw pretty firm because it kind of stands up fairly hard. And then, but if I move way further left, which is what it feels like I should do with it, my rev rate isn't enough to make it continue around the corner. So I just end up in, like, I might as well use something else. I've seen you do pretty well with the exotic at times.
Yeah, I had a good run at the beginning, like on some of the SASPA stuff. I like it more with volume, which then kind of goes to what you're saying, where it gets going a little forward and it blends it out just a little bit more. Yeah. And so it's been better for me because you have higher volumes in the middle of the lane too to help stop that transition from.
And just in general, you've liked the gem core like way more than I have.
Yeah, I've liked the original gem. Even the exotic gem, I had a lot of success really quickly, and then struggled to find other places to like it as much. But the gem still sticks around a ton for me.
I also think that sometimes when the balls come out, if you just in general, not you, but just everybody, like as a professional, when we have access to all of the balls, if we have success with a ball on something, we just, like, our mind doesn't necessarily register why it looks good on that because we don't have any data for why it wouldn't look good. So it's almost a bad thing sometimes if you have initial success with it because you're like, oh, this is a good one. And then you use it 2 or 3 different places and you're like, man, this ball doesn't do what I think it does. Well, it's because you haven't really focused on why it was good on X, that particular pattern. So then when you get further down the road, you don't have the data in your mind stored of, well, this is when I should use it. And I find myself fall into that trap a few times where I've done really well with a ball, but on that condition. So then when I get that condition again, my mind hasn't registered that that's why that ball worked because it was new. Goes a little bit to when you say, you don't like throwing the new balls sometimes.
I don't know exactly where they fit, and I don't know which ones are off of them very well. But Dylan asked, "Does an attorney exotic gem both in your bag make sense?" I don't think those two are particularly close in shape. I think the attorney is considerably smoother in general, and the exotic gem is stronger in both the mid lane and down lane. It does get forward, but it's because it's so much stronger in the mid lane and changes direction so much more. I think those can play off each other for sure.
Yeah, I personally don't have either of those in my bag very often.
That's also the truth.
So because we're keeping it 100 with you, I feel like it's not that they're bad. It's just that they're not balls that necessarily fit my eye. And we have so many balls in the strong category that with my skill set of getting it through the front part of the lane, I don't really need that pearl cover with a ball that's that strong. I just don't really use them very often. He's got his question right here.
Arnozo, yes, here you go. I have the opposite problem than most. Too many balls. I actually think there's a few people in here that have similar issues, including us.
There's no such thing as too many.
Yes, I've been a terrible disappointment to Stu and Dom over the years.
It's just you need to understand your process better to sort it. That's all.
Yeah. Which 6 or 7 balls will you keep from these? Reality, Eternity, Summit, Phase 2, Zen Gold Label, Fate, Exponent, IQ 2, or High Road Pearl?
I mean,
Reality's a keeper.
Like literally to get to 6 or 7, that's only. 9 isn't like that.
And 6 is kind of a base. I guess 5 and a spare ball.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I don't think you have any necessarily bad ones. I mean,
The Eternity is probably the nichiest ball in that
yeah,
bunch.
I mean, I don't necessarily
Maybe the
know
Fate.
that there's that many times that you need Reality Summit and Phase 2. Like,
Right.
I mean, if you were trying to get rid of one, I personally would keep the Reality in the Phase 2 because I've seen more success with those than with the Summit. I think that the Summit is probably going to be one of those balls that the day you find it to be good, it's going to be amazing. I mean, like Tom Adcock looked like he used it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he put a beating on him.
Yeah. Yeah. You could see a case certainly for Reality Phase 2, Gold Label, Exponent IQ Tour, and Hyro Pearl. If you were more on the Rev dominant side and you would flip a few of those out, you could put in the Fate in place of that if you need more back end.
Yeah, and I mean, if
Just
your
kind of depends
Summit,
on where you struggle to create angle, to create speed, to create hook, I guess is kind of
the other way I could see it, Chris, is if your Summit is really new and your Phase 2 isn't, you could take the Phase 2 out, being as you've got the Exponent. The Summit and the Exponent, I think, are a better 2-ball match than either the Phase 2 and the Exponent or the Summit and the Phase 2, because I think those 2 balls are like gapped better. Like there's a bigger gap between them. So it kind of, to have 2 kind of smoother balls like that, it kind of makes more sense if they're a little bit further apart. You probably don't need the Exponent and the IQ Tour.
That was what I was going to say. After I said it, we've kind of come to the conclusion that at least I wouldn't pick both of them, and I would pick the Exponent right now over the IQ Tour in recent times.
And at the same time, like if you were having the Phase 2, the Exponent, the IQ Tour, and they were all new, the Phase 2 and the IQ Tour are going to be more of a gap than the Phase 2 and the Exponent, or the Exponent and the IQ Tour. Like just from what we've seen. But thanks for the question. Just get a bigger car.
Carry a box around. You get the big roller, you can just put that 7th ball right on top of in the handle. That's what I do. So.
Well, you can make it 8 in that way. You can have one on each.
Well, if you have 2 of them, I only have 1 big bag. So 1 big one, 1 airport roller.
Okay. Thanks, Mamani says condolences. Can you explain how to build an arsenal with different diffs versus RGs versus covers? All right. Well, we have two kind of different ways of this. And I think that part of it is because of where we bowled for a while. Like I kind of was mainly on the Storm train, and Chris was like Brunswick and Columbia Ebonite for a while before he came over to Storm. I personally am. So my friend Jared talks about cameras. He says glass, 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 glass about the lenses. I'm the same, but with covers. Like I think that the cover is like way more than people think it is, and I think that everybody gets wrapped up in cores and diffs. And on the Storm side, I just don't think it makes as much of a difference because the covers are so much like stronger and more dominant.
There's more variance between them as well.
Yes.
In some of the places I was before.
So like, for example, like in Chris's mind when he first came across, like the High Road Nano was a ball that really fucked with Chris, for want of a better description, because it's high RG, kind of medium low diff, but the cover's super strong. Well, it's a smooth ball. And Chris is like, how is it a smooth ball? It's 2.57 or 2.58. There's no way that's smooth. And I go, you just need to ignore that. Like, just throw it. Because when you're with the Ebonite companies, those cores made a lot of difference because the cores were kind of a little, nothing's ever good. No core's ever going to be dominant over cover. But it made
the covers were very similar. So that was where you separated the balls.
Exactly. Yeah. So Chris still, his mind is still a little more that way, and it's probably a good thing. No, but what I'm saying is to
Yeah.
see like the subtle differences in the ball. Sometimes I get a little bit tricked. You know, Sean Ryan will come to me and goes, "Why are you using a ball with that higher RG on this much oil?" And I was like, "Who cares?" And then he was just like, "Just change," and I'll change, and I'll be like, "Man, I'm not leaving any ring 10s anymore." And Sean will be like, "Well, yeah,
We all get stuck in our own ideology,
yeah."
and nothing is 100%, 100% of the time.
No,
So
100%. But this is kind of like, no matter how you build your mind around whether you want to go the core diff way or you want to go, you've still got to watch the ball on the lane.
yeah, and you can see my general very blanket of how I set up a 6-ball thing, and it has a lot to do with covers and cores, but the covers are all going to have more surface and be on the stronger end, and so ball 1 is your heavy ball, and that's the realities and the gems, and the ball 2 is the step down from that. If reality pi is, it would be a recent add
Yeah.
into that, and then that medium control benchmark phase 2s and Zen golds and those kind of balls fit in there.
Is the Zen Gold not more of a medium angular for you?
It depends. I have one down with surface and I have one up. I would say it depends on what you have behind it. Like now I would put the Blackout as my medium angular ball, probably behind
Okay.
that. And
The
that's just because I'm going to skew towards more of that lower end because my struggle is to get the ball far enough down the lane.
I was about to say, just in the past, the X2 has fit in that gap, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even sometimes below that, just depending on, but really it's always been stronger than, I've always found that cover to be the cleanest cover for me, but that core is a lot of core. So it's certainly not going to be on top of a hustle line or something, super clean angular. And then the dynamics is kind of a dry control ball for me.
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing this, I would be ball 1 would be the reality. Ball 2, ball 2 for me might be that virtual energy, being like I could see it fitting in that gap a little bit for me. Ball 3 for me, the medium control ball would be phase 2 or maybe even the absolute, because I tend to use the absolute as my benchmark ball. Ball 4 being the medium angular would probably be right now something like the Zen Gold label. And for me, the dry angular ball would almost certainly be the Revenant. It was the Night Road for a while, but probably the Revenant right now. And then ball 6 for me would definitely be my spare ball. And then ball 6.1 would be my urethane ball, because I can't really shoot spares with my urethane ball very effectively. So that's kind of where I would see it. So appreciate the question. Thanks for the condolences. What is it this week? Honestly, what is it this week? Oh man. Says tried pin and palm layout on the Tour Dynamic and actually really liked it in League. Like,
and that's smooth on smooth right there.
I'm glad it worked out. Did you ask me about that layout before? Because I told someone on the show the other day that I would just never do that on that ball because I don't think it flares enough. So maybe your track is pretty low.
Well, Samo did find a partner for this weekend.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. Billy Rogers.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Nice catch for Billy. And for Samo.
We've got a bunch of questions. David, I think the issue is difference in cover strength isn't explained as well as what the core numbers mean, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair.
Yeah, where core numbers are they are what they are, and you cover in general. You're dependent on the marketing that they're telling you the truth, and that's why I have ball reviews. And speaking of ball reviews, check out YouTube today for his ball review.
Yeah,
I'm
just going
to see what a virtual blackout looks like. You can check out the show, the TOC archive on on Bull TV.
Yeah,
So,
I've got the videos up. I just need to do some thumbnails, which I'm going to do just before I leave. So I'll probably put the Blackout up first, and then later on this afternoon I'll put up the Eternity Pie video. Matt, thanks for the super chat. He says, I'm looking for a good ball for the middle of my bag right now. I'm primarily throwing phase 2, phase 5, hustle camo, hustle wine, and pitch black. So are you looking for something in between the phase 5 and the hustle camo for the middle of your bag? Because, I mean, for me, the obvious one that would fit dead there is going to be the Revenant. Night Road would fit there also if you found one and you could get a deal on one.
I think that Blackout would be longer, but it's going to be a lot of hook compared to everything else in that bag.
Yeah. The gold label might be kind of similar to the phase 5, but more angular. Kind of similar overall strength, but it would be more angular than the phase 5. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. If that wasn't what you meant, just clarify in the comments.
Yeah. Message back and we'll clear it up.
Yeah.
Curtis says, would you agree that SPI looks better generally for bowlers with heavier forward rolls? Yeah. I mean, people who struggle with the whole idea of filling out an arsenal is covering up what you don't naturally do as well. And really, the SPI stuff matches up pretty well because now they have everything on both ends. 20 years ago, they were primarily back end, really dominant on the back end side of things, but didn't have a ton of really early rolling balls. They figured it out. And now you have things for people who struggle to get it to pick up and for people who want it to go sideways down lane because they can't make it go, which then it doesn't go sideways, but it does then continue. And so
my take on that is in general on the PBA tour, I think everybody thinks that the lanes suit everything they don't do. So the guys who spin the shit out of it think that you've got to roll it. And the guys like me and Chris who kind of can get the ball going early and Dom find that we try to convince ourselves that we need to rotate it more. I mean, I just think that that's been the way it's been forever. Like, everybody wants to throw it like Pete Weber because, oh my God, look how Pete gets it through the front of the lane. It's unbelievable. Like, God, I wish, we bowl at Carolier where the lanes are super dished and it's a joke because his ball like skids down the slope and then it hits the other slope and it wheels back and it feels like he's got 5 boards to hit and we've got like a crack to hit. And then we go and play on something that has real oil, like a lot of oil, and Pete's ball goes dead straight. And Pete's like, man, I can't make anything pick up. And it's just like, like everybody wants what they don't do.
Yeah, Pete's thing is he is actually very unique, and when he's got it, literally no one else can do it.
Yeah,
and so he tends to make shows and win a lot when he's doing that thing. But he also has very few years where he makes a lot of shows because that also does not work on, or puts him at a disadvantage, I should say, on a lot of different weeks.
I need to clarify. Chris's a lot of shows and everybody else's a lot of shows aren't necessarily the same thing. Most people feel like if they make 2 or 3, that's a lot. Chris calls that like, an off year. No, I'm just saying, like when you were like at the peak of your powers, a lot for you was like 10.
Yeah.
For most normal people who bowled on the PBA, 10 is a career. Like
I thought 6 to 8 shows was kind of what I was looking at.
Yeah,
Just
that's
trying
what
to
I'm
get
saying. I'm just giving people perspective because Pete's made like 100 and some shows.
Yeah.
So,
well, he's also been there 42 years. So
I get it. I'm just saying that, like,
I was kidding, but actually, I think that's almost right.
What's that?
42 years.
Yeah, he's played for more than a minute.
Yeah. But,
this question is way harder to answer than you think it is because it says starting on Dragon at Plano next Sunday. Have they changed the lanes yet?
By the way, they have changed the lanes at Louisville. 1 through 22 is all it's going to be used. You'll be all on the new surface.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
I know you were looking to be an
I
absolute
love the
shit show.
chaos.
It's going to be chaotic anyway. You don't have no idea who did the install. You know.
Yeah, but at least we're all bowling on the same lane surface.
Yeah.
God. Alan,
Okay.
grow a pair. Anyway.
Gen X2, Phase 2. High Road, Pearl, IQ Tour, Infinite Physics, Quantum Spare Ball. What?
If we're talking about specifically bowling on Dragon, I think that you need another asymmetrical ball. I think most people on those longer patterns gonna like asymmetrical balls. I would lean towards. I mean, we're kind of biased on the channel, but I think a reality is always a welcome addition to any arsenal. I think the Supernova. I would leave more surface on the Supernova, and I'd have the reality kind of in box, and then kind of the Supernova would be the gem replacement as such. That would be the way I would go. If you're looking for how you would bowl, I mean, with the balls that you have, I think you're going to have to start with the Supernova and then hope that you can get either Infinite Physics or Phase 2 for the for once the fronts start to go, because you're probably not going to be able to chase it too far left with the Supernova. Yeah, I mean, you've got pretty well matched 17 miles an hour and 400 revs.
Yep. I assume that's up on top, which means that puts you right around the same numbers that I'm at.
Yeah.
You have a strong ball, you have middle balls, you have some low end. I mean, you have it pretty well covered at the moment, but like you say, you skew towards symmetrical pretty heavily. So
that would be where I think you have a gap. I think you could get another asymmetrical ball to complement the Supernova, and that could be reality. But if you want something a little weaker than that, I've seen a few people being able to get deals on reality checks at the minute. That would be a good option. I think this Eternity Pie would be an okay option.
Yeah, that would be a fit at the top, top end of top-ish part of the bag. So,
hey, Chris, he says, I think I'm going to go back to 14 pounds. Going back down to 14. 250 to 300 revs. Anything I need to look out for? Yeah, just be a little bit careful because some of the balls have quite a lot lower diff. I haven't really noticed the RG changing, making. Let me rephrase that. If the RG is changing from kind of a low RG to a sort of medium low RG, like the Phase 2 does, I haven't noticed it make that much difference for Tina. However, the diffs make a huge difference. So you just got to be a little bit careful because some of the balls have like significantly lower diff. So they might fit one spot for 15 and it'll be like a completely different spot for 14. So I can't remember which ball it was for Tina, but it was like the fate, the diff didn't change, but like the night road, it did. So like for me, the fate and the night road, I was throwing 16. So the fate was actually weaker than the night road in 16, but in 14, the fate was like 10 boards stronger than the night road. So it's like, you've kind of got to make sure you talk to people who throw 14s to know where the balls fit a little bit for some of them. A lot of the balls, the numbers don't really change drastically.
Yeah, true.
Oh, sorry. I would love Storm to get away from putting nano on everything. They really don't, though. Like,
joined by the good and the great. As usual. I mean, talk about a guy gets lemonade no matter what happens. Oh, Rambo Ray can't bowl. It's 4 minutes before the tournament starts. Oh, Billy Rogers. Oh yeah, we can bowl. Yeah, cool. Nothing bad, as Couch would say. Nothing bad. So what tilt and rotation are your A games and how does it separate the two of you? I'm a little lower tilt and a little less rotation. Actually, our tilts are probably fairly similar. It's been a while since I measured mine, but it's in the 17-degree range, I believe.
I have no idea what my tilt is.
It used to be 10, but that was back when machines put oil in the front 10 feet of the lane. So it gets lower all the time. My rotation is increasing. And what you think your rotation is, like if you think you're very end over end, you're still at like Walter's like 30. You think he's at 10. The average is way closer to 60 than 45.
Yeah.
And so I think Stu has more rotation. The ability, when he's doing what he... That was DJ's theory. He always wanted to fly on the same flight I did because he's terrified of planes and he knew nothing bad would ever happen to me.
You sound like Lonnie Wallachek always used to say, it's a good day when I'm on the same squad as Chris Barnes. Never get squad fucked that way. Which ironically has flipped quite a bit in recent times. But at the time when I first came on tour, that was the perspective.
No one says there's plenty of oil in the front of the lane. Just playing the lane wrong. Yep. You ask every lane man.
Fucking hell.
So
guy wins one title.
Yeah. Big Ball Johnny now.
Anyway, quickly getting back to this.
Yes.
I don't know is the better description. I never really worry about what I necessarily am or I'm not because it's all relative to what I'm doing. And I've never really, like, if I see a guy doing well, I'm like, it feels like relatively that guy has a lot of rotation. So I probably need more rotation if he's doing well and I'm not. And if a guy's really feels like, if Dom's doing really well, a lot of the time when Dom's doing really well, it's because he's getting the ball into the lane and really like being smooth, getting it, make it a smooth transition. So then I'm like trying to focus on keeping more up the back of it. So I feel like what separates us is the fact that I think that Chris is able to get the ball to pick up sooner when he's feeling confident. Chris gets the ball to pick up sooner and make a motion that's very distinctive, like it's very heavy rolling through the pins. For me, when I'm able to take advantage of the situation, as a general rule, it's when I can play a bigger angle, play a bigger angle and get the ball further away from the head pin. I think that even when they're pretty easy, I think that unless we're bowling on something short, I think that Chris is going to be playing closer to the head pin than I am. Yeah. That's just that would be where I would see it. I would
in general, Stu is he's able to get it 3 to 4 feet further down the lane and back from a place a couple of boards right of me. If we're just doing what we really like to do all the time, the shape he likes to see is a little longer and a little more angular. The shape I like to see is a little earlier and a little smoother control type thing. And there are certainly times when both of them have an advantage and a disadvantage. So
and
what we spend dies. That's why our arsenals sometimes vary so much because we're filling the part that we don't necessarily, that's not our preferred shape to our eye.
Yeah. And then I was about to say, and sometimes what works well can be different in the same tournament.
Yeah.
Because me and Chris might as well never enter doubles high game pots ever.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Because we've almost never bowled well the same game in the history of fucking bowling.
We bowl the doubles thing in Emerald every year. We shoot 470 to 490. 450 to 480 a lot. And most of those include a 210 game.
We managed between us to shoot a lot of 260s, just not together.
Curtis, no, unless the PBA 50 changes significantly, it wouldn't be worth the trip. So we're at an hour 5 already.
Yeah.
And much as I'd like to do this for a while longer, I think we probably should wrap this up.
Yeah.
Check out YouTube later on today, the Beef and Barnzy channel. There will be a video up on these balls, and a plug to the other Barnzy. I believe he's going to have one up today as well. But you don't need to watch that. That's two-handed thing. Don't worry about those. So,
one last thing. Ball and DJ said, met you at the Villages, was wearing a Beef and Barnzy t-shirt.
Yes, sir.
Also bowled in my second PBA event ever, was in the cut, hurt my back and died on C squad. Any tips for playing that?
Yeah, that one, it was the shortest pattern on top of it. And so when they hooked that much, everybody went to shinier balls, which then made the lanes impossible pair to pair. And you actually keeping balls that were on the smoother end, if not, I still used a gem on C squad and just added more rotation, kind of channeled my inner stew and just threw it over there towards the right gutter and let the ball blend out the pattern in the wet dry and stuff. So the shiny balls made it impossible to control. You couldn't out bowl the pair to pair differences.
Yeah, I mean, one real tip for using a stronger ball on like messed up lanes is grip pressure. If you just use a little bit less grip pressure, you'll be amazed how much cleaner it gets through the front.
Yeah, you can still get it down the lane I was using more rotation. The hand was up on the side of it and I was not grabbing at it. I was pushing it that way to get it to save. So I appreciate the questions. We'll be back at you when we can.
Yeah.
The schedule still stays pretty crazy here for the next few weeks.
We might be able to do
it
on Tuesday.
Yes, we can actually. We can give a long view recap / holiday weekend recap. So, so we'll be back at you then. For those of you, NFL's coming up and all those fantasy drafts this weekend, good luck with all those. And until next time, please support the sponsors, support us. Storm, Rotogrip, and our Global Cool Bowlers Mart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. Look at YouTube for those videos coming out today on the Eternity Pie and the Virtual Energy Blackout. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later, guys. Thanks for showing up.